Restaurants, new home builds, and city amenities headline episode 107 of the Love in Lebanon podcast. Planning Director Ben Bontrager stops by to share what he's hearing from housing companies and prospective restaurant and retail offerings. What the heck took Dunkin so long? And another Taco Bell? Ben explains. Episode 107 starts now.
Welcome to the Love in Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to lovinlebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, here on the podcast this time around, we are talking with our planning director, Ben Bontrager, here on the Love in Lebanon podcast, episode 107. Ben, thanks for being here on the podcast. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Going to waste very little time. It's been a hot button topic on social media and all around town. Dunkin' Donuts. We lost our minds when, Dunkin', they kind of got the ball rolling and then went dormant for a while.
Yeah.
And now there's some signage up. What the heck's going on with Dunkin'? Can you help us out?
They are really close. Actually, we just did a final inspection just last week, and it passed. So they are within days of opening. So, yeah, there was obviously some significant delays there. Everybody's dealing with trying to get materials, and I think the biggest thing for them was they didn't have all of the electrical equipment they need, and a lot of those things have like a 12-month lead time. So if you forget to order something, you're waiting 12 months for it. So yeah, unfortunately, it had to sit there waiting for that. But they've got that all corrected. Final inspection's been passed. They should be within days of opening that thing.
And I heard that, staffing wise, that was kind of the next domino to fall. I almost did a dueling banjos video with the Casey's, which was going up so quickly, and Dunkin' was kind of just sitting dormant there. The joke on social media anyway was Casey's may just be
first.
Exactly. So it may be a fight to the photo finish there, but appreciate that perspective on things. Your office continues to field calls on a number of different topics and would like to hit several. It seems like everywhere you look, there is dirt being turned and different things that are happening around town. We kind of highlight a few of those. It was a couple meetings back in the Board of Works where you were sharing all the new home builds and the permits that are being pulled. It seems like the bar continues to be set higher and higher and higher with the number of permits that are being pulled and the homes being built in our community.
Yeah. I think the great thing there is that with the investments that are being made in this community, we really are building a place where people want to live. You're like you said, the bar is being raised, and the new number of home starts continues to increase. I think we did about 125 permits last year.
What was it just a couple of years ago?
We were down in like the 20s or 30s, just 5 or 6 years ago. So we've seen a big increase, a lot of interest from the residential building community in the Lebanon market and the Lebanon area. But yeah, I think with the things that are coming, the other developments that are happening, there's definitely going to be continued interest. But I think what it boils down to is we've got a great place to live and a great place to raise families, and the city's making investments in parks and the Big Four Trail and other amenities, and those are things that people are looking for when they're looking where to locate their family.
And I was just getting ready to say, do you think it's like twofold where, yes, there's the city investment downtown and others and the amenities you mentioned, and just the fact that, hey, we are the next community, is that ripple effect. We see all the builds that have taken place in Whitestown and continue to do so. Are we just kind of the next base to check off?
Yeah.
There's
certainly a little bit of that too. I mean, as you kind of go around the dial around Indianapolis, you see Hamilton County obviously started building 25, 30 years ago, and you go around east and south and out west, and we're kind of the next spoke on the dial, if you will. And certainly with Whitestown and Zionsville starting to build up and build out, we're the kind of the next spot on the map. I think you couple that as being the next available opportunity along with the things that we're doing in the city, you could project that this was going to be happening.
When you get the calls in from those prospective home builders into our community, can you share what they're saying about Lebanon? Is it one of those things that we're kind of moving forward on their minds?
Yeah, I think
front burner?
Just about everybody that we talk to says that everybody is talking about Lebanon, quote unquote everybody. So the home builders, the industrial guys, the commercial guys, they're all recognizing that there's an opportunity in Lebanon. And so, whether it was 5 or 6 years ago when we were first talking to some of those first residential guys and they were seeing what was happening and wanted to be the first ones in the gate, if you will, versus now when there's still some of those same conversations, but also seeing some of the other, obviously with some of the other employment centers that are going to build out over the next few years or few decades, they're going to create additional needs. And I think when they're coming in, they're saying, hey, Lebanon is the next place to be. for a variety of different factors, and we want to figure out how we can be part of that picture.
How does the planning office kind of gauge that growth? Because it was said in a public meeting that the worry was that Lebanon's growing too fast, that there's too much happening all at once. How do you, in the planning office, kind of gauge that and dial it back a little bit so it's not so much of a drinking out of a fire hose type thing?
Really, our goal is to find quality development. And so as opposed to just looking at sheer numbers, we're looking to try to find the right type of development for our community. And part of that is looking at what our community needs, whether that is a first-time home buyer product or an apartment, or somebody that's looking to move up for the third time and looking for that bigger home and bigger lot or something like that. So we're really trying to find a good mix of what those different products are, and then the services that are needed to provide to those new people that are going to move here. So it's really what we're looking for is quality development, and looking at trying to fit those parts of the market that we need to fit here in Lebanon.
A couple episodes back, Molly Whitehead with the Boone EDC was on, and we talked about the Ready Grant, and she kind of talked us through that and gave us some deeper info. She mentioned the Boone County Housing Study as part of that Ready Grant process, and the EDC was helping to facilitate and talk to different communities. Has that conversation kind of begun on the city side of things? And if so, what have you been hearing? What's that conversation been like so far?
Yeah, I think I just had my first conversation with the consultant yesterday, so it's hot off the presses. And really just trying to get, at this point, they're just trying to get a feel for what's happening. But a lot of good conversation. I mean, obviously we talked about, the Hickory Junction Fieldhouse project and what sort of ripple effect there's going to be because of that. Steve Hankey's Waterford development and both what that means just in and of itself, but then also the ripple effect that that's going to create. And then obviously the big project, the LEAP district that the IEDC is involved with, and the major ripple effects that are going to come from that. So really looking at, as you determine, the future housing needs for Boone County, and even beyond that, what sorts of demand is going to be created by these other projects that happen in Lebanon or Whitestown or Zionsville, and they're just trying to get their arms around what all that means for Boone County moving forward.
Maybe an obvious answer, and forgive me for the ignorant question potentially, but the housing study that the city put out there just a few years ago, what a difference a couple of years makes, because that was pre-Hickory Junction, I believe, and certainly pre-LEAP and pre-Waterford. How do you think a housing study changes with the addition of the announcement of those three big projects to our community?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's obvious that they have a significant impact. I mean, when we were doing our study, I guess it's just a little over 5 years ago now, we were really looking at basically census data saying, hey, we really think that this part of this larger market will move to Lebanon just naturally. Now we have projects that are going to be driving that additional demand. So yeah, it's going to have a significant impact. And like I said, it's the ripple effects that those projects will have. LEAP District's going to generate need for additional restaurants and additional services and additional housing. Same thing for Hickory Junction. That's going to generate need for additional hotels and additional restaurant, additional entertainment options. So those things all have a ripple effect that's going to cause additional demand in Lebanon for those services.
And we're talking with Ben Bontrager. He is our planning director with the City of Lebanon here on the Lovin' Lebanon podcast. If we can talk about some more of the new things that are taking place, our Facebook page, the city's Facebook page, I should say, kind of blew up when we posted about the 7 Brew Taco Bell additions that are taking place along Lebanon, State Road 39, Lebanon Street. And people had some questions, some comments, and came out and said good comments, bad comments about that growth. Some talking about, more fast food, and they were throwing in their opinions. Bethany talked about wanting a Chili's or on the border Olive Garden. Sherry talked about an Applebee's. And what goes into, and how do you field those type of retail questions, and what goes in kind of what you've seen on the backside of things, where a 7 Brew and a Taco Bell, we're adding another fast food restaurant, our second Taco Bell. What goes into that, and what kind of data does a broker use to help break ground with those developments in our community?
Right. So I would say before there's even a conversation with the city, those investors are looking at the demographics of the market. They're looking at number of new housing starts, so thus population growth. They're looking at the average or median income of the market to see what, based on that average or median income, what is their capability to be able to afford different levels of restaurants or services, and then also just the overall number of people in that area. And so they're really looking at a number of different factors to decide, okay, when we put this all in the hopper and it spits out a use at the end of the day, that drives what the use is or what the type of use is. So without having those level of conversations with them, that happens before they get to us. But that's my understanding, is that they look at those things. So Lebanon is a community of about 16,000 people. So it's a decent sized community, but it's on the smaller end of the scale. And in terms of comparing our level of income compared to our surrounding communities and surrounding counties, we're at the lower end of the scale. And so when you couple those factors together, they look and they say, okay, these are the types of restaurants that are going to do well in a community like this. And these are the type of services that will do well in a community like this. And then that's what they look at in terms of providing a typical use. So like in the case of Seven Brew and Taco Bell, certainly based on our characteristics in our community, they looked and they said, these are the types of uses that will do well and will be successful in this community. Now, certainly as we grow and as we add population and maybe add additional income, that market characteristic will change. So you'll be able to see that the uses like the Applebee's or the Olive Gardens or some of those other uses may come as we grow and change over time. But based on our characteristics right now, and you look at our food and beverage tax payments, the ones that pay the most money, McDonald's, Starbucks, Burger King, Wendy's, those are the ones that pay the most. And Subway, we have 3 Subways, but that's what people are buying. That's what people are buying, so that's what's coming to this market.
I'm transported back to a couple of years ago. You and I went to the Retail Academy through Retail Strategies, and we went down to Birmingham, Alabama, and they ran the analytics on Lebanon, and we looked at financial numbers, and they looked at the list of retail and restaurant options that Lebanon could attract, and they took a look at the fast food and the dollar stores. And so we brought up the fact that, man, we have 3 different dollar stores. And they said, well, as far as demographic goes, I mean, that fits your income.
Yeah.
And then we asked about the pizza places, because there are a lot of pizza places in Lebanon. It's like, man, we have so many pizza places. And the expert said, well, you eat a lot of pizza. So that's why it's a proven market. The pizza will sell here. You guys will eat the pizza. So you're going to get more of that if you're willing to. Is it similar to that where Taco Bell's pretty profitable? That's why they're adding another Taco Bell.
Yeah. All these guys are looking to see where they can make the most money, and they look at the demographics, and the demographics tell them the type of use or user that will make them the most money. And in this community, based on our demographics and based on what we can even show with the food and beverage tax payments, is it's burgers, it's pizza, it's sandwiches, it's that fast casual use. Even some of our newer fast casual like Moe's is way down the list on food and beverage tax payments. So it's not even really. I mean, I'm sure they're successful, but they're not high on the list in terms of.
They're not a Burger King or a Taco Bell.
Yeah, they're not anywhere close to some of those other places. So that's why we're continuing to see those same kinds of uses, because that's what people are spending money on in this community right now. That'll change over time, but as of right now, that's what's successful here.
Yeah, good perspective. And along that same post, Albert mentioned 2 empty restaurants on the north side and more being built. He's referencing the Seven Brew and Taco Bell. Can we highlight, it's the former Taco John's and the former Popeyes, if you're listening on this podcast, and it's along Lebanon Street, State Road 39. Vacancy with those buildings, it's not necessarily the city's obligation to fill those, but you do answer questions and have fielded some over the past weeks, months?
I think obviously Popeyes has been gone for a few years now, and we've, obviously our first conversation with them was about maintaining their property, which thankfully they are doing now. But even more recently, I would say even in the last year, we haven't been proactively trying to find a use for it, but if we find somebody that's got a use that would work in a building like Popeyes, we will send it their way. And I know of at least 2 different instances where we have sent an interested party to Popeyes because we've got their corporate contact information, and the word we're hearing thus far is that Popeyes is not interested in selling that building. So we have made an attempt to try to get somebody connected with Popeyes, but as of this point, it's not for sale. So we're trying as much as we can on the city side to try to make those connections. There's only so far we can take it if they're not interested in selling the building.
Yeah, you can see there's a broker that has a sign up at the Taco John the Taco John's location, but Popeyes not so much, and they own it. It's theirs.
It's their building. They can decide to sell it if they want to sell it, and they can hold on to it if they want to. And right now, it seems like they want to hold on to it. In the case of Taco John's, if we find a user that's looking at this market that might fit for that, we will absolutely 100% get them connected, because we don't want empty buildings either.
You mentioned the growth of the community, and we kind of talked about home builds and things. And would like your perspective here on this episode of the podcast. We're talking with Ben Bontrager. He is the planning director for the city of Lebanon. We hear a lot of Facebook chatter on the new home builds, whether it's Ryan Homes or Arbor or over on Powell Street. about the cost of the homes that are coming out there and being built, and the size. And the quote continues to be replicated by different people that no one is going to be able to afford that home as a starter home, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
What are you seeing from a housing perspective of the cost of a first-time home, no matter what community, Anytown, USA? What are you seeing as far as the analytics are concerned?
Yeah, this is an interesting time right now. I think back when I bought my first home about 20 years ago, and I spent about $110,000 on it. That's just not even possible in today's market. The cost factors that go into building a home have all increased exponentially since that time. So big factors are land cost, development cost, which includes infrastructure, roads, utilities, and things like that. Local requirements for materials on a home as part of it. If you require brick or some upgraded materials, that goes into it. And then certainly the fees that have to be paid locally, whether that's a building permit fee or a road impact fee or a utility availability fee. Those all go into the cost of the home. And certainly just in the last few years, the biggest increase has been in the material costs. So the cost to pave the roads, the cost to put in concrete pipe for your storm sewer, the cost to just construct a home, they've all increased by 2 to 3 times what they were just 5 years ago. I had a conversation with one of our builders in the last 6 months, and they said their first-time homebuyer product, which is their entry-level product, they said will average $325,000 this year. And that's just because of all those factors that have gone in. That just a few years ago, they were building for $250,000. So they've increased 20, 30, 40% just in the last 3 years because of all those inputs the costs are increasing.
And that's company-wide, not just in Lebanon. So it's not just a Lebanon issue of, man, that price is getting jacked to the moon and that type of thing.
That is just an industry issue right now. Whether you're in Lebanon or Westfield or Franklin or wherever you're at, those inputs, those are the same no matter where you go. Now, from one perspective, Lebanon understands that, and we want to try to make sure we can keep something that fits for that first-time home buyer. And some of that we're going to try to address with flexibility in how we address different products, how we address the design of the site, and try to create some flexibility while we're still getting a good quality design and a good quality product, but create some flexibility that may help the builder save some costs, some of those input costs, so we can get back to where maybe a home is still only $200,000 to $250,000 rather than creeping into the 300s. That works for that first-time home buyer. So we're trying to find ways, and we're actually in the middle of updating our ordinance right now, and we're going to try and find ways to address those standards so that they can create more flexibility to allow those things.
And if we kind of talk about the standards a little bit, the why behind it. Why have those, not so much the vinyl village, to use a kind of a tongue-in-cheek phrase, but why hold those developers to a higher standard in a community like ours? Why is it so important?
No matter which community you're in, you want sustainability. You want to make sure that neighborhood looks the same 40 years from now as it does now. So making sure you've got quality design and quality products is important, both from an aesthetic perspective, but also from the sustainability perspective. So you want to make sure that they're built well and they look good now, and that they are going to look good 40 years from now. So there is some element of needing at least the bar to be high enough that you're meeting that kind of the standard, but not so high that it's making it impossible for somebody to build in our community and for people to buy a home. So there's a happy medium there somewhere where we're still getting good quality, but we're still allowing those developments to happen and people to be able to move here.
And so when the Chatterati comes out, and not going to mention any names, they come out and say, Ben's making them jump through hoops. I'm guessing that's kind of like a badge of honor for you to hold someone to a higher standard and not just let them build kind of whatever they want. And a gas station, the BP gas station on Indianapolis Avenue, kind of comes to mind, where folks listening to the podcast, you may have seen the brick go up and then brick coming down, and then maybe a different material or brick going back up on Indianapolis Avenue, their gas station there. Can you kind of talk about why that all happened? It kind of plays into the same standards and sustainability of builds in our community.
Yeah, I mean, there are minimum standards for building code and for development code locally that all folks have to meet. In the case of that gas station, they started building that brick wall and discovered that they hadn't put an appropriate footer underneath the brick wall, which essentially keeps that brick wall from heaving and falling over and possibly hurting someone. So they had to stop that build for a period of time because they also hadn't gone to the state and got their proper state permits either. And by the time they got their state permits and realized that they were going to have to do some additional things to that site, it made more sense for them to use a different product than to go back and try to install a footer underneath that brick wall. So really that was a safety issue, making sure that, that was built on a proper foundation, if you will. And at this point it was built on top of a sidewalk. And as we all know, sidewalks heave during the wintertime. And over time, that thing was probably going to separate that brick from the building and fall over.
So to bring it full circle, kind of the same thing you're talking about the homes, where in the short term, the brick wall, a home that was built with different materials would be okay or be up and standing. But then years to come, there would be issues. It wouldn't last as long. And in the case of the brick wall, would be potentially dangerous for people.
Yeah, I mean, again, it kind of goes back to our conversation we had not that long ago is we don't want to grow too fast. Well, part of that is also making sure what we do get is what we want and is a good quality product and is sustainable over time, so that people 30, 40, 50 years from now are talking about these neighborhoods as being a great addition to the community rather than as being an eyesore 50 years later. So yeah, there is a balance there. I mean, so certainly we're not beating everybody up with these really, really high standards, but there is a minimum standard we want to make sure everybody hits, but still create some flexibility to make sure that we're getting that standard, but also allows them to build something that is affordable for the first-time home buyer.
And all these standards you talked about maybe tweaking some of those just a little bit. All these standards are fully transparent in your office and able to be found online and things. So it's not like things are being hidden and there's no bait and switch of any of that. No. It's there before you.
Yeah, we're not dropping bombs on people when they show up in the office. All the standards are in the ordinance. All the building codes are published for the state. All the, everything related to those things, all readily available. We're not making things up as we go. We're following the standards as they're written. We're really trying to make sure we get good quality product for the community that's sustainable over time and still allows those options for people, whether you're just starting to raise a family and need your first home, or whether you're on your fifth move up home and you're ready for that big house or big lot. We want to make sure that we've created a product for no matter where you're at in life, no matter what your situation, there's an option for you here.
And if we can kind of wrap up here on our podcast, and we appreciated Ben Bontrager, our planning director, and chatting, giving us kind of the inside track and some intel on some things. If folks want to be able to have a conversation, whether it be a small project like a smaller project like a 7-brew Taco Bell, or a larger one, for example, the LEAP district, there's a lot of uncertainty with that, and there may be a perception of the city hiding things or not giving all the info. All the plans, like I remember going up and seeing the 7-brew Taco Bell floor plans are upstairs in your office right now, free to look at as long as you like type thing. The office is open, and you guys are able to have that conversation with people that come in and want to give their perspective or know what's going on?
Yeah, I would say if someone is available during the day, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., there's somebody in our office. I know that doesn't work for everybody because you have your own work schedule. Feel free to send us an email after hours. We can get back with you the next day. We can send you information if there's information you need. We want to make sure that you have the proper information in a timely fashion. We're available at any time, and we'll respond. Even if you've had to send us a midnight email because something came up, we'll respond to it the next day. We want to make sure we get the right information out there and the correct information out there, so people aren't guessing about what's happening.
And how exciting is this to be able to have so many different things? We've talked housing, we've talked retail, we've talked restaurant, we've talked just general amenities. How exciting is this to be able to be happening for Lebanon? Because you've been here a number of years and kind of seen how slow it's been, and then now it's certainly picking up.
Yeah, I'm coming up on 6 years now, and I think I and the mayor and all of us recognize some opportunities that have been coming our way even as long as 6 years ago. But it's a real great time to be in Lebanon, and I think some of those things that people want, whether it's the next Applebee's or something like that, those will be coming. But all of this needs to happen in order for those things to happen. And I think it's going to be a great time over the next few years to see all these things happen and get some of those additional amenities and services and entertainment options that people want to see. I think it's a really fun time to be in Lebanon.
Ben, appreciate you being here on the podcast. Thank you, sir.
Anytime.
Thanks for listening, everybody. More episodes of the LovinLebanon podcast are coming your way soon. Thanks for listening. Take care.